Well, good morning again, everybody, and welcome. My role this morning is to touch on the AFB Pest Management Plan. I'm the chair. I've been in that role since the 1st of September last year. So I'm going to give you a brief overview on what is happening, just on the current thing, but more importantly, I want to address the 5-year strategy, the work that's being done there, so that we're bringing you along with this in the journey with this, and making sure that you have a very clear understanding of what's being done. So up on the screen now you can see a structure of how it works with the AFB Pest Management Plan sitting in the middle. We have a management board, a Biosecurity Act that we have to work with, the Pest Management Plan, Order in Council, the AFB Levy Order. We have the Ministry for Primary Industries, and of course we have Apiculture New Zealand as the management agency. All of those parts are what forms the Pest Management Plan and gives it the ability to operate and do its job. The Governance Board, as I said to myself, I'm an ex-commercial beekeeper, marketer, exporter, and I've been a very strong advocate for this industry for a long time. Franz Lars is a commercial beekeeper, specialist bee breeder. He leads the Better Bees project for New Zealand. Kim Pointer, who is the non-commercial representative, she has huge experience in the private sector and brings a lot of knowledge to the table. Russell Marsh is the APNZ representative on the board. He's a large commercial beekeeper from down south. He's a qualified accountant and represented on the APNZ board. Jason Ward from Kintail Honey, a very large commercial beekeeper here in the Hawke's Bay, vast experience in the health sector and governance and operations, so another really strong individual. And Gabriel Torres, who has been for some time part of the Manuka Health operation, now a commercial beekeeper in his own right, and he has some excellent skills and technical skills. We'd call our wizard, the technical wizard on our board. He's the guy with all the technology options and things like that, so an excellent contributor to our board. It's a very strong board. We deal with a huge amount of information, and their commitment to it is massive, and they put in a lot of time, and I just want to acknowledge that. So from an operations perspective, we have a manager and support staff here they're based in Wellington. Our primary contractor is Assure Quality, and they look after the ApiWeb management, database, surveillance planning, registrations, and they are the authorised persons at level 1 for this particular pest management plan. And lastly, but certainly not least, are our contractors, our AP2s, authorised persons level 2, and they are the people that are out there in the field looking at the issues that we find, looking at the hotspots that are indicated by your timely notification in 7 days of your AFB finds, and we're collating that information and looking at what is required in the field. They're also responsible for doing some auditing and bits and pieces, and auditing is something that's going to be becoming more prevalent than you've seen in the past. Funding-wise, you are all shareholders. You pay for it. It's your plan. So when you are working out in the field, remember that following the regulations and delivering the answers and providing good, sound information in a timely manner is really critical. So please understand that. There is no government funding for our pest management plan at all. It is solely paid for by yourselves. Each registered beekeeper pays a $20 fee plus $15.17 per apiary. Now that's set in statute, it's part of the Order in Council, and it's currently at its maximum level. We cannot increase it. Our operations budget for this last 12 months to the 31st of May was around $815,000, and our projection for this year, based on the invoices that we've submitted to you, is around $1 million for this next financial year. And we look back over time, and it's really worked out at around $1 per hive within the industry over quite a consistent time. So important to understand where that money comes from. Legal obligations, obviously, too quick. Legal obligations, so the simple way of describing it is inspect, find, report and destroy. and that's that simple. New Zealand is unique. It's the best pest management plan for American foulbrood in the world. There's nobody gets even close to what we're delivering as far as our work is concerned. But we're not doing enough, and it's not yet at a level where we want to see it. So it's really important that we are all doing our bit and making sure. So we're looking at how we might improve that, looking at the technology options and how we can assist you with that. So it was in October 1993 that AFB was listed as an unwanted organism under the Biosecurity Act, and a reportable organism in 1998. It's subject to its own pest management plan, and that order was also in 1998. Delivery, to give you an idea where that $800,000 was spent over the last year, you can see on the screen there. In administration and training around $195,000, and that's covering manager, board costs, training, accountancy, general administration, and communication. The contracted core services, basically assure quality, is to run the whole of their element within that, and there's a big team of people that are involved in that on a daily basis. Our field contractors, around $205,000 went into field activities last year, and that's effectively paying for the costs of having our AB2s out there. It's a paid position, and they're out to do that work, to investigate, to assist and educate. And lastly, around $140,000 is spent on other core services, debt collection, legal, insurance, testing. We do run a testing program for our domestic honey. This year we're going to put close to 200 samples through that program. We're there looking simply at where if there are spores present and where that honey is concerned. When we find it, we actually trace it right back to the beekeeper and to the batch of honey, and we have a conversation with people about that. So the simple reality is that we should not be getting spores in our packaged product. It also covers things like health and safety, and as you'll appreciate, every business now is faced with considerably more compliance in that particular area, so we have to be extremely careful how we deliver that. Government representation, the Ministry for Prime Ministries, and I apologise, Jeff Gwynn was to be here today to actually give a wee presentation on the MPI's contribution to the pest management plan. Unfortunately, he's had a family bereavement or illness and he's unavailable, so he just passes his apologies through. So the Minister for Primary Industries has specific responsibilities for the Biosecurity Act and for the Pest Management Plan. Their roles are administration, leadership, oversight, and they're the three core things. And they're responsible for performance measuring, so they come and measure what we do and see whether we're doing it right. They're there to facilitate the delivery of the Pest Management Plan in New Zealand, and they have appropriate people who are issued the permits, etc. for our AP2s. They're issued under a warrant to do their work, and relevant different appointments and authorities. From a training perspective, this year to date we've run 50 courses, DECA courses, 669 beekeepers have gone through that with a target of 90 courses this year and over 1,200. We're going to exceed that. We've just initiated a new in-house training program that's being taken out to our large commercial beekeepers who have a considerable number of staff, and we're going to train a trainer within that organisation so they can deliver the same level of training to their staff when we can't physically do it ourselves. That's a new initiative. The first course is just later this month, and we'll be expanding that. So if you're a company with multiple staff and you're keen to have somebody trained within the training program that we have, please come and see us on the AFB stand and talk to Rex and his team there. We've also started doing refresher courses now because many of you have held a DECA for a long, long time. I can assure you most of you, in fact all of you, have probably never reviewed it. It is something that is required, so you do need to have a look at that because many of you will signed up for your DECA when you had 100 hives and maybe today you've got 2,000, so your method of operation is probably quite different, and you'll need to have a look at that in time and get your DECAs up to speed. We're also doing the train the trainers, so we have a training program every year for our educators, the people that are out there running the courses around the country, and again it's a critical tool in lifting awareness and educating those. Understand that over 50% of the 8,000 beekeepers that we now have registered in New Zealand, probably more than 50% of them have only been beekeeping for 2 or 3 years. So training is critical because all the rules have changed. What we did before are not what we do today, and we have to be very aware of that. The potential for AFB transfer, we've heard it from Randy and everybody here today. The more bees you have, the closer the population, the more risk of spread, and that applies whether it's Varroa or AFB. From a field activity snapshot, and if you hop onto the AFB stand, you'll actually there's a list there that tells you of all the activities in the region throughout there. But we basically have 4 areas of work: the reported problems, the notifications, and the phone calls that we receive where people are really concerned about what's going on in their region. And we welcome those phone calls because it helps us to determine where we need to be put our activities. So if you've got concern, you need to be talking to somebody. Don't keep it to yourself. We do targeted surveillance, and that's based around where our hotspots are. And you will have seen in the Beekeeper recently, we put out a map of New Zealand with those hotspots on it. So we're looking to do work in that area and work how we can improve and assist the beekeepers in that region to reduce the levels of AFB. We have to deal with a lot of unregistered sites, something that we shouldn't have to deal with. You know, it's a simple thing to register a site. It's not going to break the bank, but it's really critical that you are actually registering those sites. You cannot sell honey from a site if it's not registered. It's the law, right? So make sure that you're registering your sites. I know we have a 30-day rule at the moment, and I think that's probably not assisting many of us in our accurate recording of what's going on. The other areas, obviously, is abandoned hives, and we have to be conscious of that as well. So while we hop in and have a look at those abandoned sites, we may not necessarily clean them up straight away, because if there's no evidence of disease, then they're not a critical factor as much as what some of the other work we're doing is. So bear with us as we work through those. So I look at it all and I keep asking myself, where are we going with this? And so what happened late last year, we got together a team of people, and we thought, what are the opportunities? What can we do? Where are our shortfalls? What are we missing? What are missed opportunities, and all the bits and pieces? Clearly, hive density is compounding the problem, and you can't hide from that. We've gone from 300,000 hives not that long ago to 800,000 hives now, and I can assure you, based on the conversation we've had around the country with various large beekeeping operations, we will hit 1 million hives by Christmas, even with a really tough year we've gone through. So we need to be really aware that our hive density issues are going to bring other challenges, and we need to be acting really sensibly about that. So those concerns triggered a review, a 5-year plan or strategy review, and a couple of key things were put back on that table in that meeting. One, with eradication was a goal that we felt needed to be back on the table. We sort of lost our way during the Varroa incursion time in the 2000s, where it took our viewpoint or our focus away from AFB, but right now it's back here, and we need to be really focused on it. So where to from here is my question. So hopefully I'm going to load up. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to give you a rundown really briefly on the 5-year plan strategy and where we're at, and give you a bit of an idea. So firstly, the growth trends indicate there's a far higher risk of a serious AFB event in New Zealand than there was in the past, and that's simply that hive density. Projected 1 million hives by December 2017. Last 12 months, 1,800 new registered beekeepers. So that's a massive number of people entering the industry, and 50% of the industry would be classified as new entrants. The industry seeks an eradication outcome, and it can only be achieved by some change in thinking. It's quite possible in managed colonies. We know that, and it's real. We have to look at our changing technology and the resources we use, and how we might be able to do that on a more efficient basis and support the objectives of the plan, which is your plan. You own it. AFB is a major factor in market access and bee product value. And it's really critical we get our heads around it. China is now stopping honey at the border and testing for AFB spores. There are people within this room here who have had products stopped at the Chinese border for this issue. The product's been released and it's gone through, but at some point it's not likely to happen. So we need to be very, very conscious of that and how we might deal with that. Will that mean that every batch of honey that's going to be sent into China has to be tested for AFB spores before we release it for that particular market? These are all questions that you need to be thinking about. So some industry trends, you can see it on the board there, it's pretty self-explanatory. 2009 to 2017. It's a massive change, and to think that we're talking about another 20% increase within this year, potentially. All right? Back then, 33% of all beekeepers were commercial. Today, it's far, far less, and maybe 14% could be classified as semi-commercial or commercial, with over 6,800 beekeepers sitting into the non-commercial hobby sector. The largest beekeeping operation in New Zealand today runs 67,000 hives. You know, when I started in this industry, the Arataki, the Berry family, were the biggest beekeepers in New Zealand with around 15 or 16,000 hives. We were daunted by the sheer number. Now today we're looking at numbers like this. That particular company has a goal of 100,000 hives. All right, so understand the challenges are there. And you can see that, you'll be able to see that on the slide easier than I can probably, but it's just the trends of what's going on and how that's rolling out as these years have progressed. So we developed a bit of an action plan, and it's reasonably focused, and we've tried to keep it as simple as possible. But the strategy is to deliver it in two ways, and I have to say that none of this will be possible if you don't want it, because it's your choice. So we have to decide if we're actually going to have a crack at this, or are we just happy for the status quo to roll on like it is? Because personally, I think that would be a huge opportunity lost if we took that particular option. So our strategies are based on two things, but we need to recognise, reward and build exemplary practices within our organisations, our beekeeping operations. We need to recognise and affirm their compliance to the AFB Pest Management Plan, support those beekeepers that need help, the non-compliant guys that we need to drag them through, and we need to make it completely unacceptable and untenable for non-compliance. It has to be a point where it's no longer accepted completely by this industry, and every one of you in the room has a responsibility to be compliant. So the focus is on a number of areas. Firstly, legal reform. The AFB Pest Management Plan has very little teeth. It's very difficult to operate in. Quite frankly, if I wanted to take some large beekeeper to court, he's got more money than the whole of the AFB Pest Management Plan. It's very difficult in a legal situation when the guy on the other side of the table's got 3 times as much money as you have to try and take someone to court. Right? So we need some legal reform, and we need to do that. And we've been having a long discussion with MPI on how that might be achieved. And I noticed just yesterday or the day before, they were able to fine somebody $3,000 for doing something wrong. So if they can do it in another industry, well, why can't they do it in ours? We need to look at the resources that we have out there and how we deploy those and how we do that. The next one is measuring and monitoring, and that means it's going to be more auditing. Maybe it's not going to be an AP2 with beekeeper experience that's going to come and talk to you, and maybe an auditor with auditing experience is going to look at your paperwork and ensure you're actually doing what you're saying you're doing and making sure you get it right. We want to communicate and engage more, and we've started now with work on a communications program, a newsletter, things like doing the automatic text notification to you the moment we get an AFB find in your area. Things like that, trying to improve how we do that and get that engagement going. Obviously, we're going to focus on compliance and making sure that people are actually doing what they're saying they do and reporting. It's not a crime to have AFB. It is a crime when you don't report it. You're a hero in my eyes if you actually send in a piece of paper or give Tony Roper a call and say, I've got a problem. We want to hear about it. It is no good pretending it's not there. It's no good creating a dump site down the back of a farm somewhere with all your sick hives in them. That does not help us in the least. Be a hero and put your notification in straight away. If you're not sure, be a hero and ask for help, because there are so many people out there that will come and give you a hand. They don't want it and you don't want it, so please talk to people. And if you need to, obviously the training side is really, really important. So what will that legal reform look like? So we're looking at the levy order and its fitness for purpose. Is it right that an industry that's worth probably $550 million a year is contributing $600,000 or $700,000 to a pest management plan, and when we realise how many hives are being burnt and what they're worth, are we getting the mix right? I don't think we are. So it's really something to be thought about. So the levy order needs to be fit for purpose. We need legal strength so that when we need to put our foot down, we can do it and actually do that economically and quickly. And we need to engage MPI with MPI more. And it's something that we're working on quite a lot. And we're looking at how we might do that. One of the things, practices currently, there are 2 AP2 warrants in New Zealand. One looks after the exotics, the other looks after the AFB, and we've been talking about how we might be able to bring those together rather than having a common pooled resource of AP2s. Financial targets, we need to make sure that things are fair and equitable, and what we're actually putting out there is actually delivering the required outcomes. And we're asking the question, why is it only the beekeepers that are paying for a pest management plan that delivers so much for the industry when there are so many other beneficiaries out there? Perhaps we need to be having a discussion with the kiwi fruit industry and a few others, and maybe they would be keen to support the goal of eradication of AFB if we could explain to them why and where the benefits are. The measuring and monitoring side of things, obviously AP Web's a challenge, right? I'll put my hand up. Absolutely, it's a bit of a nightmare. We understand it. We are in the process of working through how we might fix that and really focusing in on that right at the moment. It's a dinosaur, but we're living with it, but it's a dinosaur from the past and we have to have something modern going forward. So we're having a serious conversation right at the moment with relevant supply organisations that might be able to put a new platform on the table, and we're also having a very strong conversation with MPI about why industry needs to have multiple databases when the logic is that we have one strong database that provides all the resources that we need for our industry. So that's in a review process right at the moment. We want to extend the surveillance activities with new technology and science tools, and that's really critical for us. So we're looking at quantitative PCR testing so that every beekeeper in New Zealand can take a live bee sample from the apiary in the spring, send it in and have it tested, and they'll be able to find out whether there are actually AFB spores in that particular apiary. And then you can do some work ahead of the curve. It's often before you actually see any clinical signs. So we're looking at how can we help you find things faster and do things better. We're also looking at we've just authorised a case study to be done on the detector dog work, and we've got the detector dogs out there today, but we're looking at how those can be done. We need something scientifically very robust to be able to sign off, so we've actually putting some money in to do a case study on how that might look. And we need to be really keen to how we develop this rapid reporting. So the next bit of technology we're looking at is how we can have an app on your phone so that you can be in an apiary and actually take a photograph of that hive, send it through and notify, and it goes straight into the system so that we can get there faster and we get that information out faster. The moment that goes in, it triggers a notification to the other beekeepers in their area, and so that they're aware of exactly what's going on, and they can also take the appropriate steps. Communications and engagement, well, we want to facilitate change. You've heard Randy talk about it. Doing what you do is just a license for death, right? It's never going to work. So we have to accept change. And I know we're going to drag a few people along with us and all that sort of stuff, but it's just going to be the way it is. We have to move with the time. So we've got to empower our beekeepers to do this. We need to engage as a pest management board. We need to listen to you, but there needs to be a cultural change, and that's that cultural change of turning people into heroes because they report and not the other way around. It's not a crime, it's a crime when you don't tell us. And we need to look at our systems and our resource and how we can improve that for you so that it makes it far easier for you to talk to us and we can talk to you. But we need to do it in the smartest way possible. And that's where Gabriel comes in, because he's the technology wizard. And we need to absolutely make sure that when we're communicating with you, it fits what you want. So if you're not talking to us and telling us, then we don't know. So again, we need that engagement. It's really, really critical. Compliance, well, culture change, encourage and reward. I would love to be in a position to give a discount to beekeepers that do a great job on their AFB levy. Why wouldn't I? But on the other side of it, we've got the guys that aren't behaving, and we need to get that cultural change. We need to get the whole thing balanced up, and we need to reward those that do a great job. We need to support that with continual improvement in education and ensuring that everybody has an opportunity to come along and learn. And of course, we're looking at enforcement systems and tools and how we can do that, and whether we can extend the powers of our authorised persons level 2 to have some more authority and to be able to deliver some immediate compliance or non-compliance penalty. So training, really important. Obviously we're targeting as many of the new entrants as possible, and that's why we're also driving our training program down into the larger companies so that they, many of these companies have 30 or 40 staff. This is the best way for us to get to them. And we're also looking at our training practices and that information going out in Mandarin and Korean and a number of the other languages, because our community is changing. Right? We've got a diverse culture now, and we need to be able to facilitate that. We don't want anybody hiding behind a tree somewhere. We want them all out in the open so we can help and work with them. So we also want to facilitate absolute best practice as far as AFB is concerned. So I've got here review, refresh, build and share, and that's the principle behind our training. Engagement, well, as you'll be aware, we put out this first strategy plan as a really raw document and put it out there earlier this year for you to have a look at. We're just about ready to send out the second version of that. It's been refined. We've taken all the consultation commentary that we received and we've tried to put that in where it's practical. So there will be a second one coming up shortly. We've got the MPI engagement side of things, and currently I have an invitation sitting on the Director General of MPI's desk for a senior member of the MPI staff to come and join our board at our board meetings from an MPI perspective, because we need that interaction. We've got the ApiWeb review going on, as I said, operations plan. It's under complete review right at the moment and redevelopment. The current document's a dinosaur. It has got great information, but there's just too much on it, and it needs to be refined and made a lot smarter. And of course, we're looking to increase our communications. Electronic engagement, just so you'll be aware, this year we did electronic invoicing and ADR circulation. Look, I apologise, it wasn't perfect because we were learning too, but we're getting there. It saved about $20,000. That $20,000 we were able to put into our AP2 so they could go do some work in the field. So there's logic in why we do it. The text notifications of AFB fines, it's all about saving you time and money. Wouldn't you be frustrated if you're in your apiary site 1 and apiary site 3 down the road, somebody had a fine next door? Wouldn't it be great if you could just, while you're actually in the field, being able to drive to that site and check it anyhow, rather than going all the way back to your base and having to come back again? That's the principle behind the fast notifications, so that we make it easier for your business to operate. In investigations, so we're looking at technology for real-time reporting, an app or something on your phone where you can do that. It's linked straight into ApiWeb, a photograph and information. We're looking at, as I said, we just signed off on a surveillance detector dog trial to see whether that can help us. Maybe that's the go. Maybe we do the AFB spore test, PCR, we then go to the dog, and then we go to the human, all right? There are ways we can look at how do we do that. The dog could do 80 hives in 10 minutes. We can't open 80 hives in 10 minutes, right? So it just doesn't work. So that's good. The PCR test is also going to be used for extended for the honey testing as well. We're looking to expand our AP2 officer numbers, so if you're out there and you're interested, come and talk to us and increase our training program. So what will it cost? Ultimately, it's your decision. Simple. It's around about $1 a hive at the moment to maintain the status quo. But if you compare it to the lost value of a hive to AFB, and you take 2,000 hives in the country, currently I guess you could confidently say they're worth $1,000. $1 a hive looks really tiny in my view, all right? So what are you prepared to invest in your AFB plan? It is your plan, you are the shareholder, you're the owner. What are our options? And this is the $10 million question. Do we maintain the status quo? Its levy is at its maximum, We can improve some compliance tools, but that's about where we're at. We can double the current levy, increase the AP2 surveillance, and strengthen further our compliance tools, or we can really crank into it and have a crack at eradication, and we will need complete industry support to do that. But they are the options that I see sitting there right at the moment. Consultation, as I said, we're in this process with you now. It's about engagement. We're looking for feedback, and we're also working with MPI, and they now join us at each of our board meetings. And lastly, but not least, I just refer you to the AFB website. It has some massive information. If you haven't got the AFB app on your phone now, please go and see Rex or somebody in the AFB stand and get it loaded up. It's absolutely critical that you have this information in your system. It's all there. There's some wonderful tutorials, and I really encourage you to take advantage of it. Thank you very much. Thanks, Thank you.